Independent retail business can mean so many things these days. A brick and mortar store, an e-commerce business, a maker's online shop, a booth at an antique mall, and more. No matter which category you're in, Kathy Cruz, a fellow retail business owner and retail educator, will teach you how to market and manage your business efficiently so you can spend time doing other things you love. Welcome to the Savvy Shopkeeper Podcast.
Welcome to episode 17 of the Savvy Shopkeeper Retail Podcast, the confusion around community over competition. I'm your host, Kathy Cruz. Rather than sharing my intention for this episode at the end like I normally do, I decided it's important for me to share it now at the beginning. So, my intention is to start a conversation about the popular phrase, community over competition. I'm sure we all hear it often. And I'll be honest, this episode makes me a little nervous. It's because there can be such a variety of opinions on this topic. Now, I realize this podcast episode is a one-sided conversation because it's just me recording, but I want you to think about what I'm saying. I also want you to tell me what you think about the phrase, particularly in our retail community, because I would love to publish a part 2 to this episode. Part 2 will be a continuation of this, and it will also be about what you think community over competition means. But first, let's start off with the shopkeeper shout out. It's a 5-star review left by Amy McCauley, and it was titled, "Can't Wait for More," with an exclamation point. I can't forget about that one. She said, "I've been a member of the Savvy Shopkeeper group for several months. It is the nicest and most supportive group out there. I'm so excited to get to hear more from Kathy and this powerful and uplifting community." Now, I'm not sure if I have Amy's store correct. It wasn't listed in the review, but I'm pretty confident it's called Scout. And she has a home goods, apparel, and gift shop in Waco, Texas. I'll link it in the show notes. And Amy, if you listen and I have it wrong, please let me know so we can link it correctly. But it only seems fitting to share Amy's review, especially since this episode is dedicated to the Savvy Shopkeeper communities. So thank you, Amy. I appreciate you and your kind words. All right, let's get started on episode 17. I had a recent conversation with a member of Master Shopkeepers, and the topic of community over competition came up, and I found I was really passionate about it. That's how I knew it needed to be the next topic for this podcast. So let me first start by talking about the meaning of community. In the dictionary, community means a group of people living in the same place or having a particular characteristic in common. The second definition was a feeling of fellowship with others as a result of sharing common attitudes, interests, and goals. All right, so this is simple. We have this covered. In the Savvy Shopkeeper communities, and there's 3, there's Savvy Shopkeepers, Blooming Shopkeepers, and Master Shopkeepers. In the end, in all 3 communities, we're all retail business owners. We might have different business models, but in the end, we are all independent retail business owners. So community we have. We got it. We get it, right? So next is the meaning of competition. And the definition of that is an event or contest in which people compete. Well, I think this one's pretty obvious too. It's retail, and there's no denying that retailers have always been competitive, especially the big box stores. But in the world of independence, it really depends on who you ask. So some shopkeepers will say they don't want to compete. Not quite like that. That they want to help and support each other. But there are some who hold things very close to their chest because they've been burned, or their business neighbors don't collaborate, people have stolen their ideas, other business owners aren't friendly. Everyone's situation is different. But in the end, competition is natural no matter what niche or industry you're in, right? So next, I want to move onto another word that isn't included in the phrase, but the word is relationships. And this is the element I feel can be overlooked when people talk about community over competition. And the definition of relationships is the way in which 2 or more people or groups regard and behave toward each other. The most important part of that definition to me is how they behave toward each other. A few of the things that I have stressed in the Savvy Shopkeeper communities from the beginning is to be kind and respectful. And we normally don't have a problem with this at all. I think that's what makes all of the communities so fantastic. On occasion, we might have an issue, but overall, the majority of the time, it's fantastic. And just as importantly is to give and take. If you've been in the group long enough, I'm sure you've seen me probably at least once every 6 months pop in to remind all group members that it is a give and take community. So particularly in free communities where the information and resources are plentiful, right now I think there are about 1,500 shopkeepers in our groups. But it's really important for members to do both, give and take. And as a community leader, I've seen instances of only giving where group members just give, and it's extremely generous. And unfortunately, and luckily it's only been a couple times, but I've seen instances of only taking, and this is so selfish to me. But most often, I've seen instances of a good balance of both. So in this world of information, the emphasis is on the word information. There are over 600 million blogs, 800,000 podcasts, and who knows how many websites, articles, and other online resources that are all free. I mean, we know we have access to the information because we can go to Google and just do the search and oftentimes find what we need. But then there are the occasions that we don't get straight answers. We can't find what we're looking for. And that's the information that's not free. So this leads me to another word, entitlement. And I promise this isn't going to be 20 minutes of definitions. I am going somewhere with this. But entitlement is the fact of having a right to something. I see this so much in the online world, from Facebook groups to blogging content, freebies, the free PDF files and the worksheets and the tips that I offer, and so much more. Like I said, there are savvy shopkeeper community members who give a lot. You might also have business neighbors or biz besties who give selflessly. I give a lot personally. I often have people tell me that I give too much for free. But what I don't want you to do is mistake the people who do give freely, or the internet that gives so much information, or the volume of free content on the internet, with being entitled to everything. The inspiration for this episode comes from many situations and instances where this topic comes up, but most recently it came up in a conversation. It was a post from a Master Shopkeepers group member, and she asked about women coming into her store. Now, she doesn't know the women, and they haven't built a relationship with her, but they come into her store asking her for information about her resources and her vendors. Now, this particular member was confused about how to handle these situations because she often hears community over competition, and she wants to embrace these words, but there was an internal conflict about her hard work and giving all of that hard work away. Now, I want to add that this group member has an extremely kind soul and always wants to do the right thing. But I completely understood the conflict within her. We work really hard at what we do and what we build in our businesses. But she came to us for guidance on this subject. So I just want to share part of my reply to her. I said, I think people see and hear community over competition, and they forget that community means building relationships, earning trust, both giving and taking, etc. Yes, communities usually revolve around a common interest, but within those communities, you have to build relationships. From those relationships are where real value, respect, and appreciation for one another develops. When you forget or ignore what community really means, you become entitled. I'm proud to say Doris is the sponsor of this season of the Savvy Shopkeeper Retail Podcast. If you aren't familiar with Doris, they are a premier distributor in the arts and crafts industry. But they are so much more than arts and crafts. They have on-trend home decor items, bridal, garden, gifts, and some great items for creating beautiful store and booth displays. Not only that, Doris has a fantastic blog that includes categories for both makers and brick-and-mortar businesses. As an independent retail store owner myself, it's really nice to know that we can place a minimum order for only $75. You don't hear that very often. Doris has an exclusive offer for Savvy Shopkeeper listeners. Use promo code SHOP20, that's SHOP20, at checkout for 20% off your order. Offer valid through December 31st, 2020. Visit Darice.com, that's D as in David, ARICE.com, Darice.com to check out everything they have to offer. So I want to break down my thoughts on this. Community over competition is a movement, especially now amongst women. I think most of us genuinely want to learn, encourage, and lift each other up. And we really need to right now. I have a good example of why. Sarah Nemechek, she owns WE Profit Foundry. WE stands for Women Entrepreneurs. She posted in her own Facebook group recently that I joined, and I'm quoting her here. She said, women own 40% of small businesses in the U.S., but women earn 4% of the revenue generated by small businesses in the U.S. And I love that Sarah added at the end of this, she said, not a typo, it gets me fired up for change. Well, it gets me fired up too. And if you've been listening to this podcast from the beginning, you know I spent time talking about earnings, particularly in the first 2 episodes of this episode, and particularly about women's earnings. My guess is we all want to embrace community over competition because we want to close that huge revenue gap. Or maybe we just don't want to be titled the mean girls. Or we want to approach business with confidence and an abundance mindset where we don't have to worry that there's not enough out there for everyone. There can be so many reasons why we want to embrace this phrase. You still might be wondering where I'm going with all of this, so I'm going to summarize. As with anything, community over competition is interpreted in many, many ways. It really depends on who you ask. And I think this is what causes the confusion. However you interpret the level of giving within the phrase, whether you feel you should give it all, or whether you feel like you should give a little bit, or whether you feel like you should give nothing, the phrase is meant to be a positive movement. There is no denying that. And you can choose to embrace it or you can choose to reject it. One of the values of the Savvy Shopkeeper brand is community over competition. And personally, I choose to embrace it. And it's the reason I started all of this. It really is. I wanted a place where I could have conversations with women, and you can hear it in my voice where I get passionate about it. I wanted a place that was safe, where I could ask questions and not feel like I was an idiot, where, someone could help guide me. I didn't create this community for somebody to give me all of the answers. I created it just for a little bit of help, for a little bit of, guidance. I'll do the work. So if I'm completely honest, somewhere in the interpretation, there are some bad habits that need to be broken. If you join a community, don't forget about the things I talked about in today's episode: relationships, entitlement, and one more that I want to mention is manners. So here are some helpful tips for participating in communities, whether they're online communities, business communities, whatever kind of community. The first is to spend time building and nurturing relationships. And if you're in an online community like a Facebook group, a good example of this is don't just ask questions and take. Comment on someone else's post. And if you don't have answers for them, at least be the person that encourages someone else or supports someone else. And if you have answers, you can guide someone, then make sure you comment and do that. The second is don't assume that you're entitled to everything. Do the work and invest in yourself and your business. Not everything is free, nor should it be. You'll have more skin in the game if you invest in yourself, your business, and in your relationships. And the third, which probably seems so simple, but it's have manners. Be polite, respectful, and by all means be gracious. Gratitude can get you a really long way. I can't tell you how many emails or messages I've received from people who have asked for something pertaining to a free piece of content, or who reach out to me regarding the free group because they didn't like something going on in the free group. And these messages have been short and curt and sometimes demanding, without any bit of a greeting or graciousness. So if you're thinking I'm claiming to be perfect on this topic, I am not. I think if anyone knows me well, it's the women in Master Shopkeepers. I am always the first to say whether I've made a mistake or I've done something wrong, if I've learned from the mistakes. I always say I'm far from perfect. but I have learned from the mistakes, and I have learned from being in other communities and asking or saying the wrong things. I'm sure I will continue to learn because I'm always working on this, and I hope I always will. And if you're thinking, goodness, Kathy, toughen up. Some of you might be like, God, just get a thick skin. I just want to say, trust me, I have a thick skin, more so than some of you might realize. Having a thick skin was second nature in my former career, but I refuse to let this online and social media driven world dismiss how my mamita raised me, and that's my mom. Ending this episode by mentioning my mamita seems fitting, and one day I really feel like I'll do an entire episode about her. And hopefully I'll be able to record it without crying. Because when I talk about mamita, and she's still with us, when I talk about her, I can get really emotional. But it's just the amount of respect I have for that woman. Talk about a woman who is strong and resourceful. So I recently realized that I haven't shared much about my own personal story or journey, and I plan on working on this. Because it's important. It's my story and my journey that define the passion behind Savvy Shopkeeper. And one thing I realized, it's not just my former career, and it's not just my mom. There are so many things that have put me in the place that I'm in now. And I promise I'll talk more about this in future episodes. I think it's really important that I share more with all of you. So to wrap this episode up, I really want to know what you think. How do you interpret community over competition? Was this episode helpful? Are you annoyed by what I said? Do you have any other thoughts on the topic? If you want to share, I'm inviting you to share your thoughts with me. And I know I talk about this at the end of every episode, but just to reiterate, you can send me a DM on Instagram, and my username is @SavvyShopkeeper. You can use the contact form on my website. I'll link it in the show notes. If you're a member of one of our communities, you can post in the group. And if you really want to be heard, if I really challenge you, I want you to grab the Recorder app on your phone and record your voice and thoughts about this topic and send me the audio file. You can send it to my email. It's Kathy with a K @SavvyShopkeeper.com. I would love to include a few of these audio files in the follow-up episode because it's important for me to share it in your voice. I know you all hear me all the time, and I don't have the bandwidth to do interview episodes right now, but I would love to include some of your thoughts literally in your voice on the follow-up episode to this. So if you'd like, when you send me the audio file, you can include your name and the name of your shop if you want, or tell me you want to remain anonymous, and I will completely respect that. Before I end the episode, one more thing. I want to add that Sarah of WE Profit Foundry, who I mentioned a few minutes ago, she's a former shopkeeper who found her mission. It's to help women business owners become confident around finances. So Sarah's Facebook group, the one where she shared that little tidbit that got me all fired up, her Facebook group is Financially Confident Women Entrepreneurs. Again, it's a Facebook group. It's free, and she shares really good information in it. It's Financially Confident Women Entrepreneurs. You should join it. I don't think I've ever recommended another group in this podcast, but I really feel like Sarah's found her mission, and she is going to provide a ton of value in that group. So join it. And I'll definitely have her group linked in the show notes too. I tell Sarah all the time that she truly found what she was meant to do. So if you want to see the show notes to this episode or find links to anything I mentioned, you can visit my blog at savvyshopkeeper.com/episode 17. That's savvyshopkeeper.com/episode 17. Gosh, I feel a little winded. I think that's what happens when I get really passionate about a topic. If this episode or this podcast in general has been helpful to you, please take a minute to leave a rating or review or share it with a friend. A rating is simply hitting a series of stars. It's 1 to 5 stars, with 5 being the highest rating. And a review is just a written review of the podcast. It has a title, and then you can write a couple sentences about what you feel about this podcast. Either way, whether it's a rating or review or you share it, I appreciate all of it. From now on, we'll be sure to include a link in the show notes where you can actually leave the rating and the review. Again, thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of the communities. Thank you for being a listener. I really, really appreciate it. So until the next episode, be savvy and boss up.